Welcome to the Dear Dyslexic podcast series. I'm your host, Shay Wissell. For those of you who are new to the series, welcome, and for those returning, thanks for tuning back in. Today we're speaking on the topic of law and higher education, and that's a combination you wouldn't normally put together. Our guest speaker today recently moved from Melbourne to Tasmania to take up the position of Vice Chancellor and President of Tasmanian University. He has a long history of working across the private, educational and social sectors as a lawyer as well as a board director. He has accomplished all of this as well as many other accolades. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure.
I came across your story in the ABC News when I was reading about you, and I've also done a little bit of research following that and read your bio, and you've had some amazing achievements and won a number of awards, including a Rhodes Scholar. And you've recently become the Vice Chancellor of Tasmanian University, and you're quite open about being dyslexic as well from what I've read. So how have you been so successful and been so open about being dyslexic?
Well, actually, it's not until much later in my career that I was open about it, and really not till I started in the last 10 years when I was Master of All in College. Was the first time I was really publicly open about it, and that's really because up until that point, the prejudice that I saw out there in the world around dyslexia was so severe that I actually thought it would probably be liable to cause me discrimination in various forms if I was. But having got to a position where really, I thought I was probably above that, I thought it was really important to be public about it for the sake of all the other people who have dyslexia and no doubt felt very similarly to the way I did.
At what age were you diagnosed with it?
Well, for me, I knew I had some significant kind of learning challenge from when I was in primary school, and aspects of school were a total struggle, and school was a very paradoxical experience, probably embodied in the year when I was in the kind of remedial English class and the enrichment English class at the same time. So school was a huge struggle to try and find ways to successfully communicate, because I did find writing in ways that people could read really hard. And it wasn't actually till I'd left Australia that I was able to get a diagnosis, and that was after I'd finished my undergraduate life, which had some serious challenge because of the dyslexia all the way through it. So it wasn't until I was about 21 that I got that diagnosis and was therefore able to get the right kind of flexibility in university to kind of accommodate it.
Wow. Was that diagnosis in the UK?
Well, it was actually in Germany, and then it was where we first kind of got a thread on it, because through a set of circumstances we happened to know someone who was a specialist there, who was able to begin the process of identifying it. And then in the UK, which is light years ahead of Australia in this, they were both very understanding and accommodating. I had the very good fortune to get to Oxford University, and with some trepidation I explained the challenge, and they were, for the first time in my life, somebody said, actually, that's fine, we have lots of dyslexic people here, here's the ways we kind of accommodate that. And for the first time I was in a place where it wasn't assumed dyslexic people were somehow, had some kind of lack of intelligence, and required some kind of accommodation in quite negative ways. So rather, it was the first experience of being affirmed about it.
Yeah, I wondered if it was the UK, because some people I've spoken to have gone to the UK to work and have ended up being assessed and diagnosed over there.
Yeah.
And they've found the same thing, that when they go over there, they feel much more accepted and valued than when they're in Australia.
Yeah, no, we are. We really are terribly behind in ways that I think are really awful for far too many people.
And that's why we've established the foundation, so we can take the first steps in trying to rectify some of the issues that are happening here at the moment. It's baby steps. But how did you feel when you came out? What was the reception like? When we say came out, it's not the best way to talk about it, but that's how people have been explaining it to me. They feel like they've come out when they openly talk about being dyslexic, and it's something that not a lot of people are doing, really.
No, so you get, I think still in Australia you get the full range of experiences from those who've had some kind of encounter with it, who are just deeply relieved. There are other people who are talking about it and happy to kind of, talk about how one engages with it and sees it actually, I think, as a real strength and not just a constraint, through to those who still kind of make jokes about it, as though in the way that, once upon a time people made jokes about other forms of disability, to those who still think it's some kind of limitation on your intelligence. And happily, a small number, a modest number of people, probably a growing number of people, who recognise that, history is full of some remarkable dyslexic people where the dyslexia was probably part of what contributed to them being able to, make real contributions to the world.
So were people accepting of you when you started talking about it?
Yeah, well, they were, because I was the head of university college, full of very capable students and staff. So in a way, they had to immediately put to one side. It clearly couldn't be to do with intelligence, given the role I was occupying. So people had to think about it a little differently. And look, I was very fortunate. It was a community of students and staff who, one of the place's values is diversity, and so it was a very good environment to be engaging around it, because it was, we were a community committed to working, seeing all of the advantages that come with true diversity.
I've spoken to someone that's an academic in another university, and she'd had a different type of experience where she felt she had to come out because she was being poorly treated around her academic. Even though she's an academic, her writing skills have been impacting enough on her work where she felt she had to start disclosing what was going on because of the way she was being treated. So it's interesting, people's different perspectives on being an academic in that type of field.
Yeah, no, I think it's still highly, highly varied, and it's largely because it's, broadly not well understood. So, all efforts to expand people's understanding is, I think, terrific. And also, the importance is not just to address the need to make, to have a system that accommodates a much more a wider range of forms of intelligence. Our system has come to prioritise a really quite narrow construction of what intelligence is, and for our world today, our need to have a much, a broader embrace from a broader sets of types of intelligence, I think, is really critical. And, for all the challenges it certainly posed me in, important points in my life, I don't think I've been able to do all the things I've done unless I was dyslexic. It's the ability to think in wholes, in relational terms, to see the patterns and the big pictures. A lot of things that I think come with my dyslexia, the ability to combine the creative and the analytic, that have really been the core of what's enabled me to do what I do. So I wouldn't be without it, however hard it's been at various points. And I hope and work for a world where we can, the kind of gifts that dyslexic people bring can be more widely available and accepted, and may not be blocked out and discriminated by.
You talked in the article that I found in the ABC about a highly conformist system.
Yep.
Where, and the workplace is very structured in the way it works, and that we should be promoting more of a non-conformist way. And I think dyslexics are quite non-conformist, not just in the workplace, but I think in general, because we do think very differently. Have you always thought in that sense around the workplace and how we should be working in different ways? I mean, you've had a very colourful career and you've worked in a lot of different areas, from the Defence Force through to being a lawyer. So,
yeah, look, I do think in the world today, we have to build organisations that really take advantage of the kind of diversity and talents of various talents of people. And most work today that's sustainable into the future needs to be ever richer in the creative content that it's got in it. The routinized work of the world is destined to automation in various forms, and even so-called white-collar work is destined to that. If it's routinizable, it's automatable. So the importance, I think, therefore, of enabling people to be more creative, so they can do a much broader set of things and create a lot more value, seems to be really important for the future of work and for people having jobs. So I think that sense that non-conformity, actually, the only work people get paid to do in the future will be the kind of work that doesn't conform to routine.
I hope so. I'd like to stop being in a routine.
I think it's a near certainty. I think technologies, unless we have some kind of Luddite revolution, which I don't see happening, the nature of work is going to change continue to change hugely, and people will need to occupy the creative places that computers and machines can't occupy. We need to be getting down that road right now.
So as someone that's been in leadership roles, have you been able to influence change in the way that you can bring more people that have dyslexia or creative thinkers into the workplace, or be able to change the way workplaces are starting to move from a conformist to more non-conformist or more flexible types of workplaces?
But my leadership roles have really been in a university setting, and certainly there I've sought to do that, and just by being open about it, to make it clear that that's something that I see the institution, that case that I was a part of, needed to embrace that and give people a sense that was something appreciated and valued, and people should feel comfortable to be dyslexic and feel that their contributions would be valued, or if they were students, that any need for the system to be adjusted to support them would be certainly well supported, by the college.
Have there been, is there anything that you've learnt overseas while you're in England or Germany that you've been able to bring across and implement?
Not really, not directly, other than to be aware of that the level of sort of capability in those places, both to diagnose and support people, is just an order of magnitude different, and how in need we are in Australia of a significant uplift in the capability to identify and accommodate and in our whole right across our education system. It's more knowing what certainly, if not good, a lot better looks like. I think it's that I've taken away from those places.
And for you, on a personal level, how does dyslexia affect you? I mean, you've had some really high up roles and high leadership roles, and you've sat on boards as well, and that's not easy, being a board member myself and having to do a day job. So what strategies have you put in place to be able to manage such a high workload, really?
Well, I think actually dyslexia is a big help on that, because it means I tend to see the big picture in things quite quickly, and certainly in all those different kind of governance roles, being able to see the big picture and the essential issues is a really big help to doing that. I have to allow enough time for getting through papers and things. There's a bit of accommodation needed for that. But the power power of being able to join the dots and see what really matters and ask the questions that kind of cut through, those things, I think, make it much easier to do those things. And in the most practical ways, I was very fortunate when I first major job, which was at McKinsey. They had proofreaders, so it was a godsend.
That would have been a big help.
It was a huge help. And so I've always been fortunate since then to make sure that I have people working with me who are good proofreaders.
Yeah.
But look, I still have to live with the embarrassment of sending emails where there's, where I don't have somebody proofreading all my emails, obviously, where a word's left out, or I've, flipped something around, or used the wrong, the phonically wrong word.
Yeah.
And people sometimes get a little puzzled as to why, they don't realise I'm dyslexic. But they think maybe I've been just writing too fast and left a few words out or used the wrong one. And of course I look at it and I can't see it. So there's just a level where I've got used to living with the kind of low-level embarrassment of that comes with that and pushing on regardless.
Yeah, I had a colleague that she proofreads my work for me, and she said to me the other day, "Do you miss words out?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Yeah, I'm starting to see the pattern now when I proofread for you. I know what to look out for." And she said, I realise now it's the odd word gets missed or the odd letter at the end of the word. Yep. And so now she said it's even easier for me to proofread because I can see exactly what I need to kind of look out for.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier for her.
Yeah.
But it is that low-level embarrassment of being at a certain level in the workplace that you're making those simple mistakes, what I find for myself anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But it must be easy, I think, as you get up, the higher up you get, if you're able to get an EA or certain people that can assist you, it makes it easier.
Yeah, well, the terrific thing at McKinsey was even in the most junior role I had, because it was really committed to quality, that anything significant that was going out to clients always got proofread anyway. So it was just part of what, quality looked like. And that meant for the first time in my life I wasn't a special case. It was just part of, the normal making sure good quality things had is there was somebody dedicated to keeping an eye out for those misspelled words or omitted words or whatever it was. And, I felt normal because the system just automatically accommodated it. It was it really was a huge positive.
How did you manage with all the readings at uni studying law? Did you have certain strategies?
Yeah, look, it was really hard. I still am. I'm a slow reader. And so, I got very good at being a tactical reader. So law is all about reading case after case after case. And so I would get the textbook out and find out what the principle was before I read the case. And then I'd read to kind of, aim to figure out which bits of the text really had the core of it. And combine both, high-level picture of what the logic was meant to be with the bits of the case that made sense. Over the years with all those academic subjects, I got very good at tactical reading and very good at figuring out, for me, a big part of the strategy was figuring out what the shape of the ideas were, and that meant that I'm able to kind of dip in and figure out how it fits together rather than trying to get through a vast volume and figure it all out.
Yeah.
It was a really key. That's always been a really key strategy for me.
And so, being in the roles you're in now and other roles, have you felt a responsibility to advocate for people with dyslexia, particularly now you're in the education sector and you're openly now disclosing and talking about your dyslexia? Do you feel you've got a place now to be advocating?
Yeah, look, I think that's sort of emerging, really, as I realise how, I'm in more position to, be a useful advocate for it. So I'm, moving more into that mode.
Because, I mean, Tasmania's doing a lot, particularly with the 2610. We interviewed some people down there last year. So the Lord Mayor from Circular Quay was interviewed, and we talked about the 2610 program and all the great work they're doing, but that Tasmania in general's quite far behind. A lot of people, community members, have low literacy skills in general, let alone people with dyslexia and the issues they face. So there seems to be a lot of work being done in that space already to try and improve outcomes for people in Tasmania.
Yeah, look, it's getting underway, and I actually just, by sheer coincidence, before we were meeting, I was meeting up with the key with Amelia from Square Pegs, the chair
yes.
of Square Pegs, and hearing about the just terrific work that she and her colleagues have been doing. So, and talking about how I might lend my support to the great work that they're doing, because for sure there's a lot to do.
We'll be interviewing Rosalie Martin. So she's from there as well. So she's been doing a lot of advocacy work with the prison.
So I met her as well.
Yes.
And they are great people, really absolutely terrific.
Yeah, there's a lot of great work being done in Tasmania at the moment. So you're going down at a great time, I think. And it's great to be able to share your story and to show all the amazing work you've been doing, really, and how much you've achieved. Are there key messages you'd like to send out to our audience around all the successes you've had, but any challenges that you've overcome in your journey?
I think for me, probably a key thing is, while recognising that the system really does make it hard sometimes, really hard, that in the end, focusing on the gifts and strengths that it gives you is even more important. But it really does give people some very distinctive ways of thinking that the world in many places urgently needs, and to build your life off the strength that dyslexia gives you, rather than letting the weaknesses be barriers. And if the job you're doing or the career you're having is enabling you to use those strengths to find some way to navigate in it or into somewhere else which does enable you to use those strengths. I think at the end of the day, they are such considerable gifts that if you can find a way of working and living that really takes advantage of them, it makes life both happier and your ability to contribute and make a difference in the world that much greater.
Is dyslexia something that runs in your family?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think those who came before me, they were never diagnosed. But when I look, I can see very clearly where it comes from.
Yeah, we can see it in our family too. Has it gone down through through to your children? Have you?
Yep. So I have I have one very dyslexic daughter, and that, of course, made me super painfully aware about how unbelievably far behind we are in Australia.
Yeah, well, it's good that you're a strength-based family then.
Yeah, we've had to be very focused on being strengths-based.
Yeah.
Very focused.
We were talking about that in another podcast today, about when there's difficulties, to try and make them as neutral as possible and to really focus on the strengths, whether it's arts, music, sport, and the difficulties, keep them as neutral as possible.
Yeah. So my daughter is extraordinary at art and as a maker, and as a conceptual thinker.
Yeah.
And she's a great talker. So we focus on supporting her in all those strengths.
Yeah, and I think being on a board actually is a good thing for people with dyslexia, because we are big picture and strategic thinkers and analytical thinkers, and you don't have to do much writing. I find on my board anyway, even though I'm sitting on a board as a chair and as a board member and the CEO for the foundation, which you don't normally do. But
great. But
it's more around the conceptual and the big picture and strategizing. So, but that's all very positive. So thank you so much
No, that's a
coming
pleasure.
on the show.
Every strength to your work, and it's been a pleasure to have a conversation.
Well, good luck in Tassie. We'll be
Thank
following you and all the great work that's happening down there, because there is some really amazing stuff happening. So we're keeping a close eye on it and hoping to form some great partnerships with all the work that's happening down there. So we look forward to talking to you in the future. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye.
Talk soon. Bye. If you would like to find out more about Rufus and his inspirational story, head to the Dear Dyslexic website to find out more at deardyslexic.com. Also, if you haven't already done so yet, make sure you sign up to our mailing list so you can keep up to date with all the work that we are doing at the Foundation. Head to deardyslexic.com. And don't forget, if there's anything you've heard today that you've found distressing, you can contact Beyond Blue 1300 22 4636 or Lifeline 13 11 14. Thanks for listening, and until next time, bye for now.